Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right. Hey, everyone. This is John Corcoran. I am the co-founder of Rise 25, and I am also the host of the Smart Business Revolution podcast. This is going to be a live episode. I'm here with my friend Sam Klein, and we're also going to be publishing this as a podcast episode later. And we're going to be talking today about how to get your team engaged with AI. And so I'm excited to do that because Sam has been at the heart of that. He and I have talked about AI many times before. He's super knowledgeable of it and also about how to get your team using the right prompts for the job. And I think for someone like me and Sam, and there's other people on this call who follow AI very closely, we kind of think like, do we really need to do that? Because you probably were working on that 2 or 3 years ago, but there's 99% of the population that still need help with that. And so it's really fundamental. And to get greater adoption, we're going to need people to learn how to prompt better and how to use AI in a practical way. So just a quick housekeeping matter. Just want to let everyone know that the next presentation that we're going to do is on April 2nd. It's how to leverage PR to increase your AI search results with Dave Burnett, for those of you in the EO, SEO, in the Age of AI group. And so that'll be exciting. But Sam, I'll turn it over to you, and I'm looking forward to learning from you, buddy.
Yeah, man, it's great. I appreciate you having me. And hello, everyone. Just by way of background, I started my career in advertising. I worked at Goodby Silverstein and Partners for a number of years. I sold blogs when blogs were cool with John Battelle at Federated Media. I pivoted and started helping startups when revenue became important. And so I helped launch their first ad products. So things like the first ads on Waze before it was bought by Google and Medium, Giphy, et cetera, Nextdoor. I then became a startup founder in the insurance space, and then worked at Robinhood to help launch Sherwood News. I started playing with AI, and I think like most of you, I had that aha moment, that moment where you're like, whoa, this could do some really great things. I had some time on my hands, fortunately, and I think that's what it takes, is actually playing with the model, banging your head against a wall a little bit to really learn what it's good at, what it's not. And so I was fortunate enough to be able to do that a lot. I started talking to a lot of my friends who didn't have as much time as I did. They were running companies or leading teams, and started just sharing some of the things I was learning, and that led me to working with their companies. And so for the last almost year and a half now, I have been working with businesses that range from advertising agencies, content teams to tech startups, SaaS businesses, accounting firms, anybody that's interested in AI, and just trying to help them understand how to get to the ground level, how to actually create real momentum within the organization. What we see a lot of is a lot of talk about workflows, or last year it was agents. You need to build agents, and the reality is, as John mentioned, most people don't know how to prompt. And most people within a company, if you're running a company right now, you probably could point to the 5 or so people that know AI, and they're like, oh, that's the AI group. Go to them; they know how to use AI. And so the reality is, everybody else is kind of learning, and they don't have a lot of time, and so they don't have time to put into AI that they should. And what I try and do is help speed up their learning curve, and really going to the basics. If you can teach people how to prompt, they can build workflows, they can build little tools that will actually help them within their jobs, and you'll start to see productivity gains quickly. Instead of trying to create tools at the top and pushing those down to make it easier, teach people how to prompt and let that stuff work itself up. And so that's kind of been the approach. It's worked really well for my clients. I love it. It's really fun to watch people find that aha moment. That's what I've been doing.
What do you Like, where do you start with people? Do you ask them to, if they have very little experience with it, do you ask them to pull up their ChatGPT or their Claude or whatever and see and ask them a basic prompt, or how do you start
Yeah.
with people?
No, I point him to a video. Kidding. No, I am very much hands-on keys. You have to do this stuff to learn it, right? You got to make the mistakes. You have to write the prompt. You have to see what happens. So yes, John, exactly. I sit there and we'll have a little bit of a conversation about what they've been doing in AI. Many times they've done something. They're excited. They're like, "Hey, you got to check this out. Actually, I got this thing to work." I'm like,
Hmm.
"Great. Let's pull up that string and I'll read through it and I'll see how many turns it actually took them to get what they want." And at that point, we can start talking about different tool tips or things that they could have done along the way that would have set them up for more success, even potentially got them even a better result. And then we start digging in and we'll write a workflow. Or, the easiest question to ask people, everybody talks a lot about like, how do I remove roadblocks? How do I solve your problems? But when you ask somebody that, it's actually hard to quickly figure out, well, what are my problems? What are my roadblocks?
Hmm.
But an easier way to ask that question is, what do you do on repeat? What are the things
Hmm.
that you do every
The
Friday? Do you have to
repetitive
send the
things. Yeah.
boss? Yeah, the repetitive
Hmm.
things that, once a quarter, the quarterly business review. It's the similar data in, similar data out. And so you can ask that question right there in that meeting, and they'll be like, well, I have to do this thing over and over again. Great. Let's write a prompt. And then I will literally work with them to write their first prompt. We will usually get to some kind of good prompt that will at least get them 60, 70% of the way there. If it's a very complex task that they're trying to do, I preface that this could take a little longer.
Hmm.
But we'll work through a problem. And usually when they leave the phone call, they've got something that already helps them progress. And that's an aha moment. That's also something they can take to their team or they can take to their boss. And they can start talking about how they just did something in AI. And when you start talking about that, in your Slack channels and at the water cooler, oh, I did this cool thing. That starts to create momentum with other people. Well, maybe I can do that too.
Hmm.
And so that's the whole goal is getting people to actually do it themselves versus me handing them something and saying, hey, here's a perfect prompt. Use this. It's going to work.
What do you do when you have someone who's super skeptical, or they're like, I tried it, it's not worth it, or it's not going to solve my problems? Like, how do you win someone like that over?
Again, usually they're on a call because they want to be,
Mm,
or they know that they have to be. Like
yeah.
they've been told this is, it's a company thing, right? They've
Hmm.
they've hired me to come in and help them with AI. And so even the biggest skeptic is sitting there going, well, I got to learn something.
Hmm.
And so what you're really looking for is that, again, it's that question that actually helps them to unlock sort of what maybe AI could work for them, which is, again, this is so simple, but what do you do on repeat?
Yeah.
And I know I go back
Or
to
what do
it,
you
but
not
like,
like
man,
doing, maybe? Or what do you resent doing?
you can say it that way, but usually people are like everything, or they think it's, they have some kind of
Yeah.
jokey answer.
Yeah.
And therefore then it becomes hard. And then the problem they want to solve is some crazy complex workflow that is
Mm,
just killing it. I want to
hmm.
integrate HubSpot with my contacts, and then I want to move the thing, and then I want it to
Seven
draw a
different things. Yeah.
presentation and send it, which is actually fine. Like it's a great
Yeah.
conversation because you're like, cool. So remember that AI is a person. You just hire
Yeah.
them. They're the smartest dumb person you know, right? Uh, you telling somebody something really simple like, "Hey, go give me all of this stuff," and sending them on their merry way, and them coming back, they're going to give you crap.
Mm,
And so what you have to do is you got to break down the steps, just like you would for a person. Here's what we do first. First, we do research. We're going to build a presentation. First, we do research. Then we write an outline. And then we write up what we think the slides might be. And then we build the presentation.
mm,
We don't tell AI to go build a presentation. We take AI through our steps.
mm,
And what happens when you do that is that A, you get a better result. B, you are teaching AI your process, and C, you actually end up finding ways where you can increase depth.
mm,
So as you're going through this process, you do some research and you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Could we add this kind of research or these numbers and this to this section. And then you go a little further and you're like, oh, wait, actually, we could add this. And so what it ends up doing is either it will save you a bunch of time if it's a very simple workflow, or it's going to increase the quality of work. So the time you spend may be about the same, but the output is 80% better.
Yeah.
And so we're looking for those two things when we're working with somebody. And if you can find one of those two in a conversation with a skeptic, they're like, okay, I see this now.
This
I get
happened
it.
with me just recently because I'm trying to build a repeatable process for doing kind of these GEO audits where I
Yep.
look at and GEO, for those who don't know, is generative engine optimization. So it's the modern version of SEO. So it's getting found in the AI search engines. And I'm trying to build a repeatable process for that. And I wanted to bring in some data and automatically put it into a presentation that I was creating. Presentation part was fine. I figured out a way to do that. I had a prompt for it and everything. But bringing in these numbers from an external part was a little bit more sticky. Once I figured out, oh, I can add an API and then it can come in automatically, it can fill in these slides. It's like, oh, this is really cool. I don't have to manually go get this number and put it in, and I can just, press a button and it generates this report and it puts in these numbers. Those sorts of little epiphanies are like, wow, this is really cool. This is definitely speeds up my process, and I don't have to do this kind of manual stuff anymore.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's so many different ways to find opportunities to either pull in, new information or to generate something that you just didn't think possible. I think one of the things that people do the most is they don't ask for a great output when they're prompting. They ask for what they think they should get if a human was doing it because it's a lot of work. And so, you think about a status report, like, oh, there's only 5 columns. And the reason there's only 5 columns is because it would take somebody,
So,
so many
right,
more hours to do
right,
the other
right.
7 that I'd love to have. Well, we need to get over that fear
Yeah,
because AI will go further. Now,
yeah,
again, like I said, go in your steps. Don't just try and like boil the earth
right.
off the bat because you'll get a lot of just crap and misalignment. And so if you go through the steps and you start to incrementally add the things you want in that conversation, what you're going to find is that now I have this report, right? So you've gone through this process to get it to this place. You can now ask AI, hey, rewrite this prompt so that you can
Hmm.
do this process over and over and over again. So while it may have taken you an hour to get through this whole thing that is much more in depth, you now have a super prompt that now you can just run. And whether you turn that into GPT or you turn it into a project as instructions or some other format where you're automating, you now have that tool, but you went through your process to give it all the
So
directions.
that's interesting because I was going to ask you, because I have this prompt that I called the master prompt. And
You told me about this thing. I want to see
I
this,
told you
by the
about the
way. This
master
is
prompt. I'm
this is
happy to
the
share the
you
master
keeps it
prompt.
on no, you keep it on lock to key. I
Keep it a
understand.
secret. No, I'm happy to show you the master prompt. Here, I'll pull up a screen and I can show it to you here
Do
in
it.
ChatGPT. And but I do it a little bit differently from the way you just described. So what you basically said is tease it out from people, talk through what the steps are, and then once they've gotten all that out, then they would like use something like the master prompt to have the AI rewrite the prompt. Whereas what the way I've kind of approached it is I spit out this master prompt, which I'm, because you're forcing my hand, I'm going to be sharing with the world here. But basically, it is so I use Text Expander, which spits out the master prompt. So this
Yep.
is the master prompt here. It says, I want you to become my prompt creator. Your goal is to help me craft the best possible prompt for my needs. The prompt will be used by you, ChatGPT. I will follow the following process. One, your first response will be to ask me what the prompt should be about. Blah, blah, blah. So I do this whole thing and then I say, understand. I type it. And then it just immediately says, okay, what's the prompt about? And so I can just
Yep.
say, yeah, I want
Yeah.
you to coach me on my personal finances and saving money to buy a yacht. How about that? But then it's
Yeah.
interesting because then right after that, it'll it comes up with some interesting things. Your role is assess my current financial situation, identify wasteful spending and savings opportunities, help me optimize cash flow, income. It comes up with some
Mhm.
really interesting things sometimes. And that's a lot. And then it has suggestions. Here's some other things you might want to do. Here's questions that you might want to answer. And
Yeah.
so sometimes I'll go a couple of times, depends on how much time I have, but sometimes I'll go back and forth a couple of times answering these questions. It comes up with a lot of questions, so it'll just keep on asking me questions. It almost like never comes to a final prompt. So finally I just
Of course.
give up and then, come up with something.
Yeah, so I think, and this is one of the things just about LLMs in general, right? You're trying to sort of suss out your idea and work through it, and it wants to give you the result. It
Mhm.
just is like, oh, I just want to do it. I can't help myself. Or it wants to ask you a million questions. And so I think for some people, the response from the LLM is just so great that it's hard. You're now like looking at the screen going, okay, I need to read like 13 paragraphs to make sure that this is right. And so they don't dig in. And what ends up happening is AI starts to drift because that's kind of the natural thing, right? It's a prediction model. So it's predicting what it thinks is the best. And so that first prompt that you put in, I liked what you were doing there. I'm doing something similar. I have this thing called Cosmo that is a prompt builder. And what it does is it basically asks for the context, which you just gave. But then it goes through a series of questions without giving you a laundry list of things. And it is very specific as it goes through so that it pulls out more context from you and it creates a really good prompt for that particular task. So that first prompt is really important because it sets the foundation for your conversation with the model. Remember, the LLM's like this, too much information, and we want to hone the thing in,
Yeah.
right? So that we get a better result. But what we're talking about though is not a super prompt. So even using your prompt right there, what I would still do is I would use that prompt and I'd say, hey, I want to, ultimately my goal is to build a presentation, but first I need to work through my research. And then you're
Mhm.
going to work on a prompt that is very specific for research. And that may be a really powerful prompt that you get to, right? But you're still breaking apart the task so that you're getting the most rich elements within each layer. And you also have to remember something, John. You are an advanced user.
Yeah.
um, Again, what we talked about, 95% of people touch this stuff like they touch search, and
Yeah.
so we're
Well, that's
trying to
our
build.
base level of knowledge. I think when I started using ChatGPT in whatever end of 2022, when it first came out, I used it for search for at least like a year or so, like it's just a super powered
100%.
search. Yeah.
Yeah, and so people are putting in these really limited amount of information, it's limited context it's giving the model, and they're getting kind of poor results, or they're like banging the damn thing back and forth trying to get it into a middle place where they're happy, and that's just hard work. It's a lot of work,
Hmm.
and so they get exhausted, they get tired, and then they realize, you know what, I could have built this thing by myself. I'd be done by now.
Yeah.
Why am I using AI?
This thing. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and so that's the hump that we do have to get people over, right? Is this, when you hire somebody, it's usually more work than it is easy in the very
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
It's the same, unfortunately, with AI, it's the same. You got to
Yeah.
put the time in. And if you do, you're going to start to see some really great results. But the quick way to start building that momentum is little workflows. A lot of times, again, remember, I'm talking to organizations, so we're working with people who are trying to understand, from an executive level, how do I get people either at the bottom working on certain things, or top, or bottom up, like how do we get the executive team working on other things? And, a lot of it goes down to like if you're breaking down process, the people that are actually doing the process know the process. And so if you can teach them to do little workflows, right? If they can understand little prompts that kind of pick off all the little things that they have to do to get something done, what ends up happening is you're starting to build all these little things that now you can look at from a top down and say, oh, okay, wait, this is working really well for the sales department. It could also work really well for the marketing department. How do we start to build more knowledge or more strength in that tool instead of trying to build a tool from the top? And so you're talking a lot about like if we can break things down into process, it helps AI move
Yeah.
faster, whether those are big prompts in each of those buckets or not.
And there was a report that came out, I think it was from MIT,
Mhm.
maybe about 6 months ago or 9 months ago, that said that a lot of companies were not getting value out of AI.
Yeah.
But I think that the conclusion was what you were saying, was that The problem was these companies were doing a top-down approach rather than a bottom-up solution, and those who embraced the bottom-up solution were far more likely to be successful.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we kind of skipped right over education, right? We treated, and this is, it's natural. It's a SaaS product. So
It's a
we
tool.
treated
Everyone likes talking about tools. They jump straight into it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, that we treated it similar to SaaS, right?
Hmm.
You buy Slack, they come in, they do some training on Slack, you hand it to your group, and you see a productivity gain, and
Yeah.
then it kind of just flatlines. And you
Hmm.
don't really give any more education. People just keep playing with it and learning it. But AI is like an entirely different beast here. This
Yeah.
is not just communication. This is not just contacts and CRM stuff. This is knowledge working,
Yeah.
and so you need to teach people how to talk to it. It's a different language.
Yeah.
It understands English, but you have to give it the right context. You have to put it in the right format. Um, and so if you teach people how to talk to it correctly, you get a different curve than the SaaS curve. If you go build a tool, right, that sits on top and you give it to people and they don't have to prompt very much to use it, you're not they're not using SaaS or AI. They're using a SaaS product that you built that has AI in it.
Hmm.
If you teach them how to prompt, they will um, compoundly get better at prompting, which will allow them to go from little workflow tools to bigger workflow tools to building tools. And so you gain, not just you plateau at this like level that typical SaaS does, you start to actually see productivity just continue to increase and compound.
Which, and I was
And
going to
so
actually
that's the
mention,
goal.
so like Cosmo, your tool, which I don't know, you welcome to bring it up and show it to us. But that's a perfect example of someone who took a repeatable process that you were doing with clients and then actually turned it into a tool that the clients could use that, one, it doesn't take your time for them to go through it. And two, they can play around with it on their own time. So that's a perfect example for your clients of ways in which that they could do the same with something repetitive tasks that they have.
Yeah, so Cosmo is just very much, I've had almost probably 1,000 conversations like this one, right, with different leaders or employees or people in general, just about AI. And so Cosmo is essentially it is what those conversations are, which are when I want to do something in I have an idea. And most people do this, they'll write that good paragraph, that first paragraph, right? Or they'll say it using
Yeah.
Whisperflow, which I highly recommend. And
Oh,
I
the
do not get
best.
paid by Whisperflow.
The
So
best.
you should download that and use it.
Yeah.
Start talking to your AI because you will give more context. But what it does is it allows you to give that first layer of context. And then it breaks it down into four parts, which usually a good prompt at least has these four parts, which is what is the AI, right? What is it that you are actually like trying to do? Where is the information coming from? And what is the ultimate output? And so what Cosmo does is it takes you through those questions, but it takes context from each of the steps as you're going through and saying, oh, okay, so this is what you're trying to do. Great. Now, who is the AI? And here are three ideas based on what you're trying to do that the AI can be. And so it feeds you ideas, but what it typically does is it triggers more ideas for you. So ultimately,
Hmm.
it's pulling out even more context than you even imagined you had on this particular subject. And then what it does is it will write a prompt. It will ask you, or actually, it will tell you, it will give you choices. So it'll say, hey, based on what you're trying to do, Claude is the best choice based on its model versus ChatGPT versus maybe Perplexity in this instance. And then you can either select one of those or you can click to select an entirely different model if you are using one and you're like, no, I want to use this. Once you select one, it will rewrite that prompt in the perfect format for
For
that
that.
particular model. Because each
Wow. So
one
that's
actually
not
has
something
little nuanced difference.
that is something that I've not even thought about. Yeah, I
Oh
mean, I'm
yeah,
sure I just type it up the same way in each different model. This,
of
I don't
course.
think that I approach it any different way.
Yeah, no. Each
Hmm.
one has its own little bit of difference.
Hmm.
Claude likes things more technical, and that's
Hmm.
not surprising. Where chat actually likes you to leave in sort of the feel goods,
Hmm.
if you
Hmm.
will.
Hmm.
Um, And so each model has a little bit of a different, and as you also think about like tools, maybe you're trying to build something in Lovable as a prototype to show somebody internally, or build something for yourself. There's a certain way that also Lovable wants that information. And so each one has these little things. And so once you choose whatever model you're using, it will then rewrite the prompt in that model, but then also enhance it. Um, and so it uses AI on the back end to then add additional context based on what you've written so that the model truly understands. And then you can read through it, add additional things, remove stuff if it's needed. And usually what ends up happening is that prompt is what you were talking about before. It's a super prompt. And it took you 5 minutes, but it is a very strong first prompt to lay the foundation. And what that does, less turns with the AI, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
have as many
Mm-hmm.
questions or back and forth. And so for those that are keeping track of the token usage, as we were talking about before
Yep.
folks came on, lowers your token usage because you're not going back and forth as much.
Yeah.
And also just gives people a better starting place. And so they're able to do more complex projects quicker. Um, and so, yeah, it's in beta with a number of my clients right now, and we're accepting more if people want to test it out.
Where can they check it out?
Um, Reach out to me, or you can look at Cosmo or heycosmo.ai, and just put in your email and I'll shoot you an
Great.
invite.
Great. Paul has a question. Paul, go ahead and type in your question, or if you say yes, if you want me to add you as a panelist, because we have a small group here, so I could add you as a panelist, then you could ask your question. But up to you. You can either type in the question or I will add you. He said he'd like to test out Cosmo.
Yeah, sounds good, Paul. I'll make sure you get it, my friend.
There you go. Cool. Yeah, one thing, and I don't know if this is solvable, but one thing I've noticed, this has been mostly happening in Claude. Claude is definitely, I've been using Claude as like my IT support for any kind of technical issues that
Yes,
I've been having recently.
great.
And it can be great at it, but other times it can take me down whole rabbit holes. I don't know if you've noticed this, but like
Yeah,
it'd be like, oh, I think we can solve it this way, and it'll just go down one direction. We're trying all these different things, and then eventually it's like, oh, actually, that turns out that's not the solution. We're gonna go this other way, and then we do it another direction. Sometimes we're just like zigzagging, and I don't know that it's the
hmm
prompt that caused it. Maybe it is because I wasn't clear in the beginning. Sometimes I think it's just like kind of figuring it out as it goes along, um,
yeah.
which I don't know if there's a solution for that quite yet.
So I call it conversational drift. It's hard to spot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is why you have to like tell everybody read what it tells you, even if it's
Yeah.
long. Like make sure you're reading these things. Um, but what ends up happening, right? That first prompt is really important. So if it's not set up well, then that's where drift will happen more often, and potentially in a greater capacity. Uh, if you are changing directions at all in a particular chat, sometimes I will almost ask it to summarize where we are and
Mm.
start a new chat window,
Mm.
because
So
it
you
will
like
get
copy that
caught.
output of the summary and then start a new chat window?
Yeah, yeah.
Really? And what
Yes.
does
Or
that
what I'll
do?
do is I'll branch off of a chat. If I'm using
Okay.
ChatGPT, you can branch off of a chat and sort of start afresh, if you will,
Uh-huh.
with like kind of where I want to go with it.
You
And the
do that if
reason
like
is
you've figured out, oh, like actually some of this stuff is garbage. I don't want it to
yes,
color its future thinking because I've
yes.
figured out what direction I want to go in now.
Yeah, it's like the
Okay.
last output you're reading and you're just like, what is going on? Like this
Mm.
is or 80% of this is good, but this 20% I really hate. Either I tell it like no, and I'm very clear, like remove this. I do not want this. This is not the direction we're headed, right? Only look at these things. So I'm very specific about what I want to continue to move forward with and what I don't, and that can help. But then also, if I feel like we're about to go down that path, which is the one where you're at, where it's like I'm just tangled up in this web of back and forth, I will start anew. I will ask it to tell me where we are right now, I will review what I think is good out of that. Sometimes I'll take the whole thing. Sometimes I'll take pieces of it, and then I will either start an entirely new chat and say, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do." I'll give it the context myself. I'll be like, "Hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Here's where I'm at. This is where it went wrong. This is what I'm working on. Here's some information from the last chat. Let's start anew, and then kind of move forward." And sometimes just starting anew, there's something that it got caught in the back of its head, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the very beginning that you didn't see, and it just cannot let go.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to bang your head against a wall for as long as you try.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's just better fish and cut bait, like cut it, move on,
Interesting.
start anew, and you'll
Yeah.
spend less time dealing with it.
That's not an approach I've tried before, but I'll definitely try that. That's
Do it.
interesting. I want to ask you about, and I don't know if you'll have an answer to this, but I feel like, we're kind of in this bubble of the San Francisco Bay Area where a lot of people that we know are working for the big frontier labs. A lot of people are interested in AI. Outside of that bubble, unfortunately, there's a lot of negativity. I've been
Yeah.
reading that AI has a very negative reputation, which is a little bit frightening because there could be a backlash against it. Actually, we're already starting to see that.
Mhm.
I heard about in somewhere in upstate New York, there was some possible county that was going to ban any data centers, which may be where it starts. It may be the community say no data centers, and if it means no data centers, then that could really hold this back. I'm just wondering, do you have any thoughts on that? Is there anything that people could be doing that could help for society as a whole to see the potential without being afraid of possible downsides? And let's be honest, there are going to be some downsides.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is kind of like everything, right? We went through this when Google and search came available. A lot of the same fears, a lot of the same pushback, right? From the education system to people. Oh, we're gonna, you're not gonna use you're not gonna use math anymore with computers,
Right.
and you're not gonna
Yeah.
all these things. I think we kind of go through these similar waves if you go back through history, and the way that we tend to get over those is more and more people share their story of something positive, right? And so that helps people to start to see the benefits and opportunities. And so, the encouragement is to share, like
Hmm.
share often, and don't be shy about it. And you will find that, yeah, you may end up in a conversation where you're like, well, that damn AI thing, I'm not interested in that. That's the devil or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, do your best, but I think the more that we all talk about what we do see and the positives, the more that they will at least try and play with it. And
Hmm.
sometimes they'll do it after they've yelled at you, and they're gonna go home, they're gonna look around, and they're gonna, well, maybe I'll just
Maybe I'll
see
just
what
try
I
it
can
out.
see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think it's just encouragement. There's some truth to a lot of their fears, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that nobody knows as to
Yeah.
what AI means for all of us. Um, I tend to always be the glass half full type person. I believe that this just it's like jet fuel for us. We can be smarter. We can do more amazing things.
Hmm.
We can be more creative. We can unlock more ideas that we have personally. Um, and so the more that I use it, the more I see that future, that opportunity for us. So, talk about it.
We
Don't
tend
be
to not
shy.
see, the things that we have to do over and over again that are repetitive or mundane or to suck our energy, except we see them in hindsight, looking backwards. We see like, oh, didn't it suck when someone's job was to be in an elevator all day long, just pulling a lever and helping people go up and down, and we realize, oh, okay, we can put some automation in and those people can go do something that's not as mundane and boring,
Yes.
and there's lots of things that's like that today, which it's outside of our worldview. Like we just think it, we just accept it,
Yeah.
But I think maybe a few years from now, we may look back and go, man, how awful it was that people had to just, schedule other people all day long, or
Yeah.
they had to do something else that was mundane and boring that could be sped up and that could free them up to do other things that are more scintillating and interesting and provides more economic value to society. Hopefully that'll be the
Yeah.
case.
Yeah. Hopefully. Right. And, I gotta believe so. I also, there are going to be so many industries and things that are born from the fact that we're able to use AI. And we don't even know what those look like yet. We're still looking at the obvious because we're only so close. Our vision is only so far. And so we don't even know what we've unlocked. And there's going to be many, many, many breakthroughs on so many different levels that will open up new opportunities for new industries, or more opportunities for businesses to use technology that was really hard or really expensive at one time, but now they can do a lot of it. And so that means maybe it's really great for people or for that business. We just don't know. And so again, that's why I say play, get to know it, get to understand it, get to know it on the level of prompting so that you can stay in control of it. So as it evolves and as it changes, you understand the bottom layer, the foundation of it, so that you understand how the model's kind of changing and what's happening.
Yeah. Then you can get to the more advanced stuff like using an agent to do all of your work, or a team of agents to do all of your work, which is stuff that I'm still trying to work on. Sam, this has been great. Where can people go to learn more about you, connect with you, learn more about Cosmo and the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn, obviously. I also have a website, AiArchitects.co. And then you can look at cosmo.ai. If you put in your email there, I'll ping you an invite to the technology. Yeah.
Great. Sam, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, John. This is great.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.